Ms. Gibson, thanks for coming out. Make sure your buttons hit on the microphone. Yeah.
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So thank you for having me tonight. My name is Kate Gibson, and I work for the George Washington Regional Commission. I'm here tonight representing the Fredericksburg Regional Continuum of Care, and specifically talking about an initiative that we're proposing to end unsheltered homelessness throughout the planning district. This grew out of a request that we received from the city of Fredericksburg for information on what it would take to fully address the unsheltered homelessness problem. And from there, they asked us to really scale it at the regional level and to get support from not only the city of Fredericksburg, but the 4 counties of the planning district to really be able to fully address the problem. The Continuum of Care is the network of organizations throughout the planning district that work together to address homelessness. The George Washington Regional Commission is the lead agency, so we provide the staffing for this initiative, and we have over 40 partners, nonprofit organizations, government organizations throughout the planning district to support this work. The goal of the COC and also of the initiative is to end homelessness. And I'm going to break that definition down for you. It really means 4 things. The first is to identify all persons experiencing homelessness. So we want to know who they are and we want to know them by name. Providing immediate access to shelter for those who are outside. Ensuring the opportunity to move back into permanent housing within 30 days. We try to rehouse people as quickly as possible to end their homelessness. And preventing new episodes of homelessness whenever possible. We do this through a homelessness response system that's been created and structured to address these 4 pieces of the definition. So we identify, shelter, rehouse, and prevent. Using this collaborative approach, we have several partners, as you can see, that participate in providing this response. Our current levels of homelessness response system funding are about $4.2 million. This includes money from the budgets of several different organizations like the George Washington Regional Commission, Thurman Brisbane Center, Micah Ministries, and Powerhouse and Hope House. You can see the breakdown. Over half of our funding comes from federal and state government sources, 11% from local government, and then private foundations, private donors, etc. So this slide shows, tries to quantify what our capacity is versus our needs. So we have $4.2 million in annual funding, but there's still a significant gap. On the left, you have the number of households that we were able to rehouse in calendar year 16 based on our current levels of housing funding. And on the right, you have the number of households that were in need of that resource. And that, for us, means that they were not able to self-resolve their homelessness within 14 days of becoming homeless. This chart shows the number of people who are homeless in our area compared to the growing population in the region. As you can see, the levels of homelessness have hovered around 200 for the last 5 years. And then to zoom in on the unsheltered population, over the last 5 years, we've seen that number go up from about 30 to about 40. And I should say that we are defining unsheltered here as people who are sleeping outside or in their car. We know that there's a human side to this problem, but there's also a significant cost associated with this problem as well. And that cost comes from people cycling through emergency room and jails and the homeless services system. So on the top, you see a bar, the red and yellow, that shows one person's 2-year timeline. All of the red is times that they spent in shelter. All of the yellow is times that they spent in jail at significant cost to that community. And at the bottom, you can see a chart with local numbers overlaid showing the cost of a night in a housing program, which is $20. That includes case management. A night in the shelter is $30. A night in jail is $68. And a night in the emergency room is $1,400. So FUSE, it stands for Frequent User Systems Engagement. That's a model that's been done to study this all across the country. We're actually undertaking our own local FUSE study right now. And FUSE studies have shown cost savings of anywhere from $12,000 to $16,000 per person per year by helping them move into housing, which helps break this cycle of cycling through institutions. So the solution that we propose for the initiative to end unsheltered homelessness is additional resources for housing, and emphasis on the word additional. We don't want to dismantle the system that already is in place. We need it to continue to shelter people and respond to their immediate needs, but what we're really lacking is money to help us move people into housing quickly. There are specifically 3 things that we need funding for. One is housing location. We employ a housing locator who networks with landlords and helps people find a place to move into. Money for housing subsidies, so we help with security and deposit and rent so that people can quickly get into housing. That ends their homelessness, but then we work with them to build their income so that they're able to sustain once we step away. The housing subsidy could be short-term, which is rapid rehousing model, RRH, or a long-term housing subsidy, and the model for that is permanent supportive housing, or PSH. And then the third piece is case management. So every person who is housed through one of these programs is paired with a case manager who works with them as intensively as needed to help them maintain their housing stability. And we've been doing this since, I think we decided 2010, although before that it wasn't called rapid rehousing, so we were still doing it before then. But we have a success rate of 81%. So 81% of persons who are rehoused through either rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing do not return to homelessness within 2 years. And I should say that that 2-year clock starts ticking after they're already exited out of our program. So that doesn't include the time that we spend with them case managing them. So at this point, we've shown what we can do, and what we're asking for is additional resources to scale up that program. So the cost that we came up with for year 1 is based on the number of people who are unsheltered and how many we think would need a long-term subsidy versus a short-term subsidy, and we came up with about $500,000 per year for year 1. And then in year 2, that number would go down to about $400,000. And that's because we would be getting ahead of the problem a little bit. It wouldn't have as many people to rehouse in year 2. The way that we propose to structure this initiative is to start with a 100-day community challenge to try to house as many people as possible, really build community support for the initiative and get people excited about it, and then to move into the ongoing initiative, which would last 2 years and even beyond that, to help people obtain and sustain a functional end to unsheltered homelessness. So services, so the housing, subsidies, and the case management would be provided by organizations identified through an RFP process. GWRC would provide the project management, so we would be the fiscal agent. All money would flow through us, and then we would reimburse the organizations providing the services. And we would also provide project oversight, looking at data and making sure the organizations are meeting their benchmarks. And finally, we're asking for the financial support from local governments. Here's what we are asking for, broken down by each locality. The way that we determine the breakdown is based on the zip code of last permanent address of literally homeless households served in FY17. So Spotsylvania households made up 33% of the total households served, and that's where we came up with the 161,958. The Continuum of Care Board has passed a full 10-page proposal detailing what this would look like, and also referencing data from other communities where these types of programs have worked. And that's available on our website, fredericksburgcoc.org. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Any questions?
I'm not sure what slide you had on there. You had some, the continuum of the red and yellow, whether it's jail or the data from 2001?
Yes, that was from a New York City FUSE study.
Hey, do we have anything that's more relevant and up to date for local?
We are currently undertaking a fuse study, but it's only in its second year, I think. So actually, Leslie Martin with the University of Mary Washington is conducting the evaluation, and she's in the middle of sorting through data, but she's getting data from the hospital, from the jail, and from us. So
Okay, it'd be more beneficial to have local
Sure.
data that's actually not 17 years old.
no, sure.
So is this a new organization that's standing up?
No. So the supports would probably be provided by one of our existing partners, so Micah Ministries, Hope House, or Thurman Brisbane Center. But that's still to be determined. But it's going to be provided by someone who's been doing this for the last 5 years at least.
So GWRC is not staffing this at all? Just
No, we're just the fiscal agent, so money would pass through us to an organization.
And are there any metrics, any other metrics that you can provide, updated metrics that say, you know, if we invest $160,000 in Spotsylvania, we will see a reduction in taxpayers' costs by twofold?
So I think a better way to think about it rather than actual cost savings is cost.
Avoidance.
Sorry.
It's avoidance, right?
Right. So police who are currently spending their time doing this could then be spending their time
No,
doing
and I
something else.
agree.
Sure.
If that's something you could provide in the future, and has this been presented to the Social Services Board?
This
in the
is
county?
not, no, it has not.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions from the board? I got one. Is any other location in the Commonwealth doing this or anything similar?
So rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing are done all across the state and really all across the nation. They're pretty much the best practices for addressing homelessness.
But has anybody incorporated this idea where you're putting money into the rapid housing and how's that been working for them? Have they shown results?
Yeah, so rapid rehousing, so permanent supportive housing is an older model and it's actually evidence-based and verified. Rapid rehousing is newer, but it's shown really promising outcomes. One of the things that's really great about rapid rehousing is that you can put in less money and get better results. So the old model of homeless services was housing readiness. That's when we saw a lot of transitional housing programs where people were in a program for 2 years before they actually moved into their housing. What we found is that that was really high cost because you have one family, you know, for 2 years in a residential program, and few exits to permanent housing, fewer than with rapid. Rapid rehousing, we have over 90% exits to permanent housing. People retain their housing, and the cost, the financial assistance cost per person is usually about $2,500.
Okay. Now, that $500,000 you're showing, that is not just for Spotsylvania County, is it?
No, that's for the whole planning district.
Okay. And can you tell us the whole planning so everybody will know what that incorporates? I know Stafford and.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm able, do you still have the slide up on your screen?
Oh,
There you
shoot,
go.
I'm sorry. It was
Yeah, so
already
it
there.
has the breakdown: Caroline, Fredericksburg, King George, Spotsylvania, Stafford.
Well,
Yep. So
another-
planning district 16.
Another brain failure. Sorry about that. Now, another question I have is what happened? It's too early in the budget cycles, I'm sure, to get guarantees from each jurisdiction so far that
Sure.
they'll do this. What happens to if you get, I'll just use Spotsylvania. I'm not saying we will, but let's say Spotsylvania funds theirs, but Stafford either partially or doesn't fund anything on their end. What happens?
Yeah, so we're happy to tailor this proposal depending on what the interest is from the localities. We've also put some thought into what it would look like if it was partially funded, and kind of estimating that $150,000 initiative would help us hire one case manager for rapid rehousing and rehouse 28 households over the course of the year. So that's one option to scale the project down.
28?
28 households.
Oh, that's pretty good. Okay. Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Chair.